Hello students, welcome to the lecture on simple interest and compound interest. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Define the simple interest, explain the markup percentage, describe the present value, discuss about the simple discount, define the compound interest, describe the present value formula, explain the interest-bearing notes. Let's start with the concept of simple interest and compound interest. Money is invested or borrowed in thousands of transactions every day. When an investment is cashed in or when borrowed money is repaid, there is a fee that is collected or charged. This fee is called interest. In this chapter, we will learn how to calculate interest using simple interest. Although most financial transactions use compound interest, simple interest is still used in many short-term transactions. Many of the concepts introduced in this chapter are applicable to compound interest. The chapter starts off with some fundamental relationships for calculating interest and how to determine the future or accumulated value of a single sum of money invested today. We will also learn how to calculate the time between dates. Introduces the concept of discounting a future sum of money to determine its value today. This present value of a future cash flow is one of the fundamental calculations underlying the mathematics of finance. This also introduces equations of value, which allows us to accumulate or discount a series of financial transactions and are used to solve many problems in financial mathematics. Let us now discuss the definition of simple interest. Simple interest is the most basic type of interest. In order to understand how various types of transactions work, it helps to have a complete understanding of simple interest. For example, you may pay interest on a loan, and it is important to understand how interest works. Better yet, your bank may be paying you interest on your deposits, and you can maximize your earnings by knowing more about interest. Simple interest is just the amount of money paid on a loan. It is the easiest type of interest to calculate and understand. Other types of interest like APY, APR, and compound interest can be a bit more complex. In any financial transaction, there are two parties involved: an investor who is lending the money to someone and a debtor who is borrowing money from the investor. The interest is computed on the original principal during the whole time or the term of the loan at the stated annual rate of interest. We shall use the following notation: P equals to the principal or the present value of S, or the discounted value of S, or the proceeds. I equals to simple interest, S equals to the amount or the accumulated value of P, or the future value of P, or the maturity value of P. R equals to the annual rate of simple interest, and T equals to the time in years. Simple interest is calculated by means of the formula I equals to PRT. We can define R in terms of per 100, so the formula becomes I equals to PRT by 100. In this case, we put only numerical value of R Further, wherever it comes to these assumptions should be kept in mind. From the definition of the amount S, we have S equals to P plus I. By submitting for I equals to PRT, we obtain S in terms of PRT. S equals to P plus PRT. The factor 1 plus RT in Formula 2 is called an accumulation factor at a simple interest rate R, and the process of calculating S from P by Formula 2 is called accumulation at a simple interest rate R. We can display the relationship between S and P on a time diagram. Alternatively, the time T must be in years. When the time is given in months, then T equals to number of months by 12. When the time is given in days, there are two different varieties of simple interest in use. Exact interest, where T, number of days by 365, that is, the year is taken as 365 days, leap year or not. Ordinary interest, where T equals to number of days by 360, that is, the year is taken as 360 days. Simple interest limitations. Simple interest is a very basic way of looking at interest. In fact, our interest, whether we are paying it or earning it, is usually calculated using different methods. Let us now look at an example. A deposit of $15,000 is made into a fund on March 18th. The fund earns simple interest at 5%. On August 5th, the interest rate changes to 4.5%. How much is the fund on October 23rd? Understand the solution given on the screen.
Hi, I'm Noah Cotter, and I'm going to be talking about the interest formula, which is I equals P times R times T. I'm going to try and answer why do I need to know this, what do the variables represent, and how do I use this formula. Well, why do I need to know this? Well, I'll tell you a story about Jimmy. Jimmy's a college student. He's really good at playing air guitar, but he has dreams of playing a real guitar. He simply does not have enough money to buy one though, so he decides to take out a loan to buy one. When you take out a loan, you're charged interest, and interest accrues or builds off of the principal amount borrowed, represented by P. Interest is added to the amount borrowed in time increments T in years, and then the interest is calculated by an interest rate R. So the formula I equals P times R times T is the accrued interest I equals the principal amount borrowed P multiplied by the interest rate R multiplied by the amount of time T in years. So we're going to calculate Jimmy's interest. So Jimmy's guitar and amp cost him $2,000. This is the principal amount he borrowed, so P equals $2,000. He got a loan for 2 years, so T equals 2 years, and his interest rate is 20% per year, or R equals 0.2. Remember to convert the percent of 20% to a decimal, so R equals 0.2. So now we're going to apply the interest formula. I equals P times R times T with Jimmy's information. So to find his interest, we do the principal of $2,000, or P, times 0.2, which is the interest rate, times 2, which is time in years. So let's solve for I. So $2,000 times 0.2 times 2 equals $800. I hope Jimmy doesn't want to smash his new guitar at that sort of price tag. How much will Jimmy pay? So if Jimmy pays the loan back in 2 years, he will pay the initial $2,000 he borrowed plus the $800 in accrued interest. His guitar and amp is going to cost him $2,800.
Now moving on to the next topic, we will study the markup percentage ages. The markup percentage can best be defined as the increase on the original selling price. The markup sales are expressed as a percentage increase as to try and ensure that a company can receive the proper amount of gross or the profit margin. Markups are normally used in retail or wholesale business as it is an easy way to price items when the store contains several different goods. Markup is the difference between how much an item costs us and how much we sell that item for. It's a profit per item. Any person working in business or retail will find the skill of being able to calculate markup percentage very valuable. The markup percentage measures the percent a company adds to its cost to set the retail price. The instructions. You calculate the dollar markup. This is done by subtracting a buying price from a selling price. So if we purchase an item for $10 and we sell it for $15, our dollar markup is found by subtracting 10 from 15 and our result is $5. Decide whether we want to calculate a percentage markup based on cost or the selling price. Once we choose which we will be calculating, it is important we stick to the method we choose throughout all our calculations or we will end up with faulty data. If we decide to calculate a percent markup based on cost, go on to step 3. If we decide to calculate a percent markup based on selling price, go on to step 4. Calculate percent markup based on cost. This is done by dividing the dollar markup by the cost. So if the cost is $10 and the dollar markup is $5, we would take 5 upon $10 and get 0.5 or 50%. So our percentage markup based on a cost would be 50%. Calculate the percent markup based on selling price. This is done by dividing the dollar markup by the selling price. So if our selling price is $15 and the dollar markup is 5, we would take 5 upon $15 and we would get 0.33 or 30%. So our percentage markup based on selling price would be 33%. Make sure we consistently use either cost of the product or the selling price to find the percent markup on an item. Even though the cost, selling price and the dollar markup will always be the same, the percentage markup will be drastically different depending on if we calculate it using selling price or the cost. How to calculate markup percentage? By definition, the markup percentage calculation is cost X markup percentage and then add that to the original unit cost to arrive at the sales price. The markup equation or the markup formula is given below in several different formats. For example, if the product costs us around $100, the selling price within a 25% markup would be $125. Gross profit margin equals to sales price minus unit cost, which is equals to $125 minus $100, which is 25%. Markup percentage equals to gross profit margin upon unit cost, which is 25 upon $100, which is equal to 25%. Sales price equals to cost into markup percentage plus cost equals to 100 into 25 plus $100 equals to 125. Markup percentage. Example. Glenworks has started a company that specializes in the setup of office computers and software. Glenn has decided that he would like to earn a markup percentage of 20% over the cost of the computers to ensure that he makes the proper amount of profit. Step 1. Glenn must calculate the total cost of the project, which is equal to the cost of software plus the cost of the computers. Glenn must find his selling price by using his desired markup of 20% and the cost just calculated for the project. The formula to find the sales price is as shown. Glenn must find his selling price by using his desired markup of 20% and the cost just calculated for the project. The formula to find the sales price is as shown here. This means that to earn the return desired, Glenn must charge the company $20,400. This is the equivalent of a profit margin of 16.7%. For a list of markup percentage and the profit margin equivalents, scroll down to the bottom of the margin versus markup page, or they can be found using the above markup formula. Now we will study the present value. Present value is the value today of an amount of money in the future. If the appropriate interest rate is 10, then the present value of $100 spent or earned 1 year from now is $100 divided by 1.10, which is about $91. This simple example illustrates the general truth that the present value of a future amount is less than actual future amount. If the appropriate interest rate is only 4%, then the present value of $100 spent or earned 1 year from now is $100 divided by 1.04, or about $96. This illustrates the fact that the lower the interest rate, the higher the present value. The present value of $100 spent or earned 20 years from now is using an interest rate of 10%, $100 over 1.10, 20 or about $15. In other words, the present value of an amount far in the future is a small fraction of the amount. The fact that a dollar 1 year from now is less than a dollar today would be true even if the inflation rate was zero. The reason is that we prefer current availability to future availability. We want it now. That is why there is interest even when expected inflation is zero. The concept of present value is very useful. One can, for example, determine what a lottery prize is really worth. The California state government advertises the worth of one of its lottery tickets as $1 million, but that is not the value of the prize. Instead, the California government promises to pay $50,000 a year for 20 years. If the discount rate is 10% and the first payment is received immediately, then the present value of the lottery prize is only $468,246. Present value also helps us with such practical issues as the location of an airport. Suppose someone argues that an airport, say Denver International Airport, should be built 20 miles from the edge of the city because 25 years from now the city will have expanded to reach the airport. That means that for 25 years, people will spend valuable time going the long distance to and from the airport. The gain is that 25 years from now, the airport will be appropriately situated. But because the gain from the appropriately locating the airport is so far in the future, the present value of this gain is small. Therefore, building the airport so far away today probably does not make sense. Present value, PV, is a formula used in finance that calculates the present day value of an amount that is received at a future date. The premise of the equation is that there is time value of money. Time value of money is the concept that receiving something today is worth more receiving the same item at a future date. Simple discount is an interest transaction common mainly for short-term loan instruments, that is with maturity up to 1 year, bills of exchange, certificates of deposits, CDs, treasury bills, T-bills and the like, where the price of the corresponding loan is set down by subtracting the so-called discount from the amount due. Such a loan makes use of the discount principle, that is, the corresponding interest is credited at the beginning of the discount period, interest in advance, while in the simple interest model, the interest is credited in arrears at the end of the interest period. Carefully look at the denotation as shown on the screen here. Compound interest arises when interest is added to the principal, so that from that moment on the interest that has been added also earns interest. This addition of interest to the principal is called compounding. A bank account, for example, may have its interest compounded every year. In this case, an account with 1,000 initial principal and 20% interest per year would have a balance of 1,200 at the end of the first year, 1,440 at the end of the second year, and so on. order to define an interest rate fully and enable one to compare it with other interest rates, the interest rate and the compounding frequency must be disclosed. Since most people prefer to think of rates as a yearly percentage, many governments require financial institutions to disclose the equivalent yearly compounded interest rate on deposits or advances. For instance, the yearly rate for a loan with 1% interest per month is approximately 12.68% per annum, 1.0112 to 1. This equivalent yearly rate may be referred to as the annual percentage rate (APR), annual equivalent rate (AER), annual percentage yield, effective interest rate, effective annual rate, and by other terms. The compound interest formula. The compound interest formula is shown on the screen here. The use of compound interest table. Compound interest tables are compilations of data that help you see how much interest an investment will earn over a certain amount of time at a certain interest rate. There are many different applications for these. They are primarily helpful if you are looking to buy mutual funds or invest in long-term high-interest saving accounts. Present value (PV) is a formula used in finance that calculates the present-day value of an account that is received at a future date. The premise of the equation is that there is time value of money. The use of present value formula. The present value formula has a broad range of uses and may be applied to various areas of finance, including the corporate finance, the banking finance, and investment finance. Apart from the various areas of finance that present value analysis is used, the formula is also used as a component of other financial formulas. Alternative formula. The present value formula may sometimes be shown as shown on the screen. Present value of a series of cash flow. Although some investments involve a single sum to be received or paid at a single point in the future, other investments involve a series of cash flows. A series or a stream of identical cash flows is known as annuity. To provide an example, assume that a firm has just purchased some government bonds in order to temporarily invest funds that are being held for future plant expansion. The bonds will yield interest of $15,000 each year and will be held for 5 years. Interest-bearing notes. An interest-bearing note is a popular means to make money for lenders. It is basically a loan that is issued from a lender to a borrower. The loan is repaid based on an established time frame and interest rate. An interest rate-bearing note is usually a long-term liability that lasts about a year or longer. The term of your interest-bearing note can vary depending on the principal loan amount and the lender. For example, an interest-bearing note for homes typically has a term of 30 years. The role of interest-bearing currency. The expediency of issuing notes of two kinds, one of a small denomination without interest, says 10s and 5s, and denominations of 20s and upwards at 8% per annum. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Compound interest tables are compilations of data that help you to see how much interest an investment will earn over a certain amount of time at a certain interest rate. Present value PV is a formula that is used in finance that calculates the present day value of an amount that is received at a future date. The interest is computed on the original principal during the whole time or term of the loan at the stated annual rate of interest. Present value is the value today of an amount of money in the future. Markups are normally used in retail or wholesale business as it is an easy way to price items when a store contains several different goods. An interest-bearing note is a popular means to make money for lenders. It is basically a loan that is issued from a lender to a borrower. The loan is repaid, which is based on an established time frame and an interest rate. An interest-bearing note is usually a long-term liability that lasts about a year or longer.